Zira Kelthani had been raised on horror stories about humans. Every child of the Serenity Collective knew the tales how the barbaric species from Sol 3 had conquered their own planet through endless warfare, how they celebrated violence in their primitive entertainment, how their very DNA was corrupted by millennia of bloodshed and aggressions. The propaganda broadcasts that filled collective space described humans as savage beasts who solved every problem with brutality and viewed mercy as weakness. So when Zira found herself stranded on the neutral trading station Meridian 7 with a malfunctioning life support suit, the last person she wanted to encounter was the human mercenary who had been making headlines across the sector. Captain Elena Vasquez was everything the stories said humans should be: tall, muscular, scarred from countless battles, and carrying enough weapons to outfit a small army. Her reputation preceded her, the Iron Wolf of the Outer Rim, a gun for hire who had single-handedly ended 3 separate border conflicts, and whose mere presence was enough to make pirate fleets turn tail and run. The holographic wanted posters displayed throughout the station showed a fierce-eyed warrior with graying hair, pulled back in a tight ponytail, her expression promising violence to anyone foolish enough to cross her. Zira's pale lavender skin flushed with fear when she spotted the notorious human sitting alone at a corner table in the station's main cantina. The 19-year-old Serenity student had been traveling to the academic conference on Kepler Station when her transport ship suffered catastrophic engine failure. The emergency evacuation had damaged her environmental suit's oxygen recycler, leaving her with perhaps 6 hours of breathable air before the carbon dioxide buildup became lethal. The station's repair facilities were booked solid for the next 3 days, and Zira's species required a very specific atmospheric mixture that the station's standard life support couldn't provide. She had spent the last 4 hours desperately searching for anyone who might have the technical expertise to repair Serenity Collective technology. Unfortunately, the only person on the entire station with the necessary skills was currently cleaning her plasma rifle with methodical precision, occasionally pausing to take sips from a cup of what appeared to be some kind of earth beverage. Zira huddled in the cantina's far corner, her breathing growing more labored as the suit's failing systems struggled to maintain proper atmospheric balance. Her large pearl-white eyes darted nervously between the human mercenary and the chronometer on her wrist. 5 hours and 18 minutes remaining. She had heard the stories. Humans were incapable of compassion toward alien species. They saw non-humans as inferior beings to be conquered or eliminated. The Iron Wolf in particular was said to show no mercy, taking payment in blood as often as credits. Approaching her would likely result in a quick death rather than the slow suffocation that awaited otherwise. But as her oxygen levels continued to drop, Zira realized she had no choice. Death was death, whether it came from a human's weapon or her own failing life support. At least a quick end might be more merciful. Summoning every ounce of courage she possessed, Zira approached Captain Vasquez's table on unsteady legs. The human looked up from her weapon maintenance, revealing the scarred face and cold gray eyes that had intimidated criminal organizations across 7-star systems. "Please," Zira whispered in heavily accented standard, her voice barely audible through her suit's failing comm system. I need help. My life support is damaged, and I don't have long before." She expected mockery, perhaps a demand for payment she couldn't afford, or simply to be dismissed with the casual cruelty that humans were famous for. Instead, Captain Vasquez immediately set down her rifle and stood up, her expression shifting from mild curiosity to focused concern. "Show me," the human said simply, gesturing for Zira to turn around so she could examine the suit's back panel. Zira hesitated, certain this was some kind of trap, but her growing hypoxia left her with little choice. She turned and felt the human's surprisingly gentle hands checking the various connections and diagnostic displays on her environmental suit. Nitrogen-methane mix with trace helium, right? Captain Vasquez asked, her voice carrying none of the savage mockery Zira had expected. Standard Serenity Collective atmospheric requirements. Zira nodded weakly, shocked that the bloodthirsty human knew anything about her species' physiological needs. The molecular filter is clogged, and your carbon scrubber matrix is operating at about 15% efficiency, the captain continued, already pulling tools from her equipment belt. I can fix this, but I'll need to power down your suit completely for about 10 minutes. You'll have to trust me. Trust. The word seemed impossible. Everything Zira had been taught said that trusting a human was tantamount to suicide. But as her vision began to blur around the edges, she found herself nodding agreement. What happened next shattered every preconception Zira had ever held about humans. Captain Vasquez worked with swift, precise efficiency, but also with a careful gentleness that seemed completely at odds with her fearsome reputation. She explained each step of the repair process in soothing tones, reassuring Zira that everything would be fine. More shocking still, when a group of Kandorian pirates entered the cantina and began making threatening gestures toward the vulnerable Serenity girl, Captain Vasquez positioned herself protectively between them and Zira without even looking up from her work. This one's under my protection, the human said quietly, her voice carrying enough menace to send the pirates scurrying for the exit. Spread the word. When the suit came back online, 8 minutes later, Zira felt clean, filtered air flowing into her lungs for the first time in hours. The relief was overwhelming, but not nearly as overwhelming as her confusion about what had just happened. Why? She asked, her pearl-white eyes wide with bewilderment. Why would you help me? I have no money to pay you, and humans are supposed to. Captain Vasquez looked genuinely puzzled. Supposed to what? To be monsters, Zira whispered. The broadcasts say that humans are violent savages who show no mercy to alien species. They say you're all bloodthirsty killers who… The human's laugh was not the cruel sound Zira expected, but something warm and deeply amused. Kid, I've been fighting to protect innocent people for 23 years. Half the border conflicts I ended were me stopping aggressors from massacring peaceful colonies. The only blood I'm thirsty for belongs to people who hurt others. She gestured around the cantina, where several alien species sat peacefully sharing drinks and conversation. Look around. You see any massacre? Any savage brutality? Zira did look, and for the first time, she really saw. The human wasn't surrounded by fear and violence. She was surrounded by the quiet respect of beings who knew her reputation for protecting the weak, rather than preying on them. I don't understand, Zira said slowly. The stories, the broadcasts. Propaganda, Captain Vasquez said gently. Someone's been feeding your people lies about humans, probably because they want to keep our species from forming alliances. Fear is a powerful tool for controlling populations. Over the following hour, as Zira waited for her transport to Kepler Station, Captain Vasquez shared stories of human compassion, sacrifice, and cooperation with alien species. She spoke of human doctors who had spent their lives developing cures for alien diseases, of human engineers who had helped rebuild worlds devastated by natural disasters, of human diplomats who had prevented wars through patient negotiation rather than violence. We're not perfect, the captain admitted. Humans have done terrible things throughout our history. But so has every species that's ever achieved spaceflight. The difference is whether we learn from our mistakes and try to do better. When Zira's transport finally arrived, she found herself reluctant to leave. The human who was supposed to be a bloodthirsty monster had not only saved her life, but had also saved her from a lifetime of ignorant prejudice. Captain Vasquez, she said, as she prepared to board her ship, when I return to the collective, I'm going to tell everyone what really happened here. about who you really are. The human smiled, the first genuine smile Zira had ever seen on a human face. Just remember, kid, the universe is a big place, full of all kinds of people. Don't let anyone tell you who to fear based on species alone. Judge individuals by their actions, not their biology. As her transport pulled away from Meridian 7, Zira watched through the viewport as Captain Vasquez returned to her quiet corner table. The Iron Wolf went back to cleaning her weapons, not because she was eager for violence, but because she wanted to be ready to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Zira smiled, already composing the speech she would give at the academic conference. It was time the Serenity Collective learned the truth about humans, that sometimes the most dangerous-looking people were actually the safest ones to be around.